The Gestapo, short for Geheime Staatspolizei, was Nazi Germany's secret state police created to identify, silence and eliminate all opposition to Adolf Hitler. In 1933, Hermann Göring, Minister of the Interior for Prussia, Germany's largest province, revamped the police force he controlled by removing officers not affiliated with the Nazi Party and replacing them. In 1934, Göring handed control of the Gestapo to Heinrich Himmler. By 1936, Himmler became chief of all German police due to concerns that the previous Gestapo head, Rudolf Diels, was not ruthless enough. A later Gestapo law removed the agency from judicial oversight, allowing it to operate above the law. Under Himmler and Heydrich, the Gestapo merged with the Kriminalpolizei to form the Sicherheitspolizei, later absorbed together with the SS Sicherheitsdienst into the Reich Main Security Office. In this bureaucratic maze, the functions of the Gestapo often overlapped with other security departments with which the Gestapo had to cooperate and compete. Despite its smaller size, never exceeding 40,000, the Gestapo controlled millions through a vast network of civilian informants and collaboration with the Ordnungspolizei, order police. Most agents were not originally Nazis, but ideological training encouraged them to view their mission as cleansing the nation of enemies like communists, Jews, Freemasons, and homosexuals. The Berlin headquarters became infamous for brutal interrogations and torture through beatings, electrocution, cold water submersion, and burning. The Gestapo was responsible for crushing resistance within Germany and across occupied territories. It arrested trade unionists, suppressed religious dissent, and persecuted student resistance groups like the White Rose. Church leaders, seen as threats to Nazi ideology, were tracked and targeted. The Gestapo had the power of protective custody, allowing indefinite imprisonment without trial. Victims were often forced to sign their own detention orders. The 1941 Night and Fog Decree gave it further power to make dissidents vanish without a trace. The Gestapo also played a key role in the Holocaust. It organized mass deportations of Jews to extermination camps, operated under Adolf Eichmann, and staffed Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads that executed thousands in Eastern Europe. It also helped administer concentration camps, where it oversaw torture, forced labor, and executions. After the war, the Gestapo was declared a criminal organization at the Nuremberg trials, and many of its top leaders were sentenced to death. The Kempeitai was the military secret police of the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. Established in 1881 to suppress political dissent by spying on civilians and military alike, it had arrested over 50,000 people by 1936. At first, the agency enforced conscription and police soldiers, but the Kempeitai's authority expanded rapidly in occupied territories. There, it issued travel permits, requisitioned supplies, arrested resistance fighters, ran propaganda operations, and crushed anti-Japanese sentiment. It also operated internment camps notorious for torture, forced labor, and executions. At the height of World War II, around 70,000 Kempeitai personnel operated across Japan and its occupied territories. One of the most infamous centers was their East District branch in Singapore. It became a torture facility where civilians were subjected to electrocution, burns, beatings, near drownings in oil, mutilations, and having sharp objects driven into their ears. Severed heads were publicly displayed on stakes outside the building as a tool of terror. The Kempeitai was also responsible for establishing Unit 731, a notorious biological and chemical warfare division. Human experimentation there included deliberate injection with diseases, dissection without anesthesia, and weapon testing on live subjects. The Cheka was the first Soviet secret police, founded in 1917 under Felix Dzerzhinsky. Its initial goal was to protect the communist Bolshevik regime and suppress counter-revolutionaries like the bourgeoisie and clergy. But it quickly became a tool for crushing all political opposition, including anarchists and rival leftist factions. It played a central role in the Red Terror, a brutal purge ordered by Lenin to eliminate threats to the new communist order. The Cheka conducted mass arrests, torture, executions and kidnappings without trial. Victims included political opponents, workers and peasants who resisted Bolshevik authority. The Cheka was extremely brutal and known for its torture through skinning, burning, crucifixion or impaling. It also ran the Gulag forced labor camps, stole grain from peasants, crushed uprisings and even betrayed former allies like Nestor Magnus' anarchist forces once their military usefulness ended. By 1921, the Cheka was responsible for the deaths of between 50 and 200,000 people. The NKVD was the Soviet Union's interior ministry and secret police from 1934 to 46, serving as Stalin's instrument of repression under cruel leaders such as Genrikh Yagoda and Nikolai Yesov. Under Yagoda, the NKVD expanded into a powerful security force used by Stalin for political, ethnic and economic purges. During the Great Purge, led by Yesov, the NKVD carried out mass arrests, torture and executions of Communist Party members, military officers and civilians, as well as ethnic minorities such as Poles and Volga Germans. The agency also operated the gulags and deported millions of people, especially during and after World War II, leading to immense death tolls. The Moscow show trials were staged by the NKVD to extract forced confessions from prominent figures, often under torture, followed by execution or imprisonment. This campaign silenced opposition and created a climate of terror. The NKVD also persecuted Orthodox Christians, Catholics, Muslims and Jews to eliminate organized religion in the USSR. By 1938, the NKVD had executed between 700,000 and 1.2 million people, with 1.7 million more dying in the gulags. In 1940, the NKVD carried out the Katyn massacre, executing around 20,000 Poles on Stalin's orders. The Stasi, or Ministry for State Security, was East Germany's notorious secret police operating from 1950 until 1990. Under the leadership of Erich Mielke, it became one of the most oppressive police states in history. The Stasi's core mission was to preserve the authority of the ruling Socialist Unity Party by systematically identifying and crushing dissent through intimidation, surveillance, and psychological and physical torture. The Berlin Wall, which Mielke referred to as the anti-fascist protection rampart, symbolized the Stasi's central role in locking East Germans into the communist state. The Stasi targeted anyone suspected of planning to flee the country, setting deadly traps for tunnel builders and mines near the border. They enforced a brutal border policy that saw hundreds, including children, shot while trying to escape. To control its citizens, the Stasi built a vast network of civilian informants, one for every 6 people. It monitored phone calls, intercepted mail, and encouraged neighbor-on-neighbor reporting. This surveillance led to around 250,000 arrests, many based on flimsy accusations of treason or slander against the regime. The agency operated 17 prisons and maintained its own closed society, with Stasi personnel and their families living in privileged conditions, schooled from kindergarten in state loyalty. The notorious Foxhole, a Stasi prison run by the Soviets, became infamous for its conditions with no washing facilities, toilets, or light. There, prisoners endured brutal interrogations and were physically tortured. Many were thrown into entirely white cells to be deprived of all senses, identity, and sleep. Most detainees were also used as forced labor and sedated to stay in line. The Stasi's armed wing, the Felix Dzerzhinsky Guards Regiment, functioned as an elite paramilitary unit ready to suppress unrest. Following the collapse of the GDR, some Stasi officials were prosecuted. The OVRA was the secret police of fascist Italy, created in 1927 by Benito Mussolini following an assassination attempt in 1926, with full authority to detect and eliminate anti-fascist sentiment. Headed by Arturo Bocchini, it became a vast surveillance apparatus embedded in everyday Italian life. With 50,000 agents and 100,000 informants, the OVRA launched 20,000 raids weekly, targeting communists, liberals, and members of anti-fascist groups. Mussolini had also reinstated the death penalty and exiled thousands of political dissidents, often to remote Mediterranean islands under harsh conditions. OVRA agents also blackmailed priests and kept a close watch on Pope Pius XI and Vatican affairs. Heinrich Himmler studied the OVRA closely and modeled aspects of the Nazi Gestapo on it. A secret cooperation pact between the OVRA and Nazi Germany's security services was later signed. During World War II, the OVRA helped Mussolini combat resistance movements in the Balkans and attempted, unsuccessfully, to disrupt British intelligence through double agents. SAVAK, the secret police of Imperial Iran, was established in 1957 during the reign of Mohammad Shah Pahlavi and operated until its dissolution in 1979 following the Islamic Revolution. Created with assistance from the CIA, SAVAK was modeled after Western intelligence agencies, with American officers directly involved in training its initial personnel in surveillance and interrogation techniques. Its primary purpose was to fortify the Shah's regime by suppressing political dissent, monitoring citizens and neutralizing opposition both inside and outside Iran. At its peak, SAVAK employed roughly 5,000 full-time agents and a vast network of informants. The agency was granted sweeping authority. It censored the press, screened candidates for government jobs, and conducted mass surveillance domestically and abroad, tracking exiled dissidents in countries like the US, France, and the UK. Under General Nematollah Nassiri, the agency escalated its campaign against leftist and Islamist opposition, especially after the 1971 Siakal attack. Interrogation tactics turned increasingly violent, including the use of electrical shocks, acid dripped into nostrils, nail removal, and snake-inflicted torture. The bastinado, whipping the soles of the feet, became emblematic of SAVAK's torture methods. Between 1970 and 79, hundreds of guerrillas, political prisoners, and even their own agents were executed. SAVAK also arrested and tortured Iran's intellectual class for criticizing the regime. The agency's notorious detention center, Evin prison, became a symbol of fear where countless detainees endured prolonged solitary confinement and inhumane treatment. SAVAK collaborated closely with the CIA and reportedly supported Islamic militants in Afghanistan during uprisings in 1975. After the revolution, the agency was dismantled, but its functions were absorbed by the even larger Ministry of Intelligence and National Security. The Tonton Macoute, named after the Haitian boogeyman, was a brutal paramilitary and secret police force created in 1959 by Haitian dictator François Papadoc Duvalier to protect his regime and eliminate all opposition. The Tonton Macoute quickly became known for disappearances, executions, and acts of terror. Following a failed coup attempt in 1958, Duvalier purged the military and law enforcement through numerous executions. He then created a new military force answering only to him. They carried out public killings, stonings, and torture, often leaving the victims hanging from trees for intimidation. Political opponents, journalists, clergy, business owners, and anyone who resisted extortion, no one was safe. Family members of victims who tried to retrieve bodies often vanished themselves. The death toll attributed to the Macoute ranges from 30,000 to 60,000 people. The force was led by Luckner Cambronne, known as the Vampire of the Caribbean. He capitalized on the agency's power by selling 5 tons of blood plasma monthly to US labs. Cambronne also bought cadavers from Haitian hospitals for a few dollars each and resold them to medical schools. When hospitals couldn't supply enough, he reportedly turned to local funeral homes or had the Macoute supply fresh bodies. Under Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier, the son of Papadoc, the Tonton Macoute continued its reign of terror. In 1985, the regime declared a national holiday for the group that ended with the Macoute gunning down 27 people. Corruption within the Duvalier dynasty ensured that 80% of international aid to Haiti was siphoned off for personal enrichment, with Baby Doc fleeing the country in 1986 with $900 million. The Securitate was the secret police of communist Romania, founded in 1948 with Soviet support. under Nicolae Ceausescu. It became one of the largest and most repressive secret police agencies in the Eastern Bloc, with 15,000 agents and nearly 500,000 informants. Initially staffed with former royal security police, it was soon purged and replaced with Communist Party members. The Securitate maintained total control through surveillance, intimidation, and violence. In the 1980s, the agency crushed dissent by encouraging conflict between segments of the population by spreading false rumors, framing individuals, public denunciations, and humiliating opponents. Dissidents were arrested, tortured, or quietly assassinated. In one case, union leaders from a miners' strike were deliberately exposed to repeated chest X-rays to induce cancer. Policies extended into private life. After birth rates dropped, Securitate agents monitored hospitals and enforced pregnancy tests, punishing women who had abortions. Forced entry into homes and offices, planted mics, and tapped phone calls were the standard. The agency also eliminated threats abroad, like high-ranking defector Ion Mihai Pacepa in the US. Following the 1989 revolution, the Securitate was officially dissolved, but many of its operatives were absorbed into new structures. The DINA was the secret police of Augusto Pinochet's military dictatorship in Chile, created in 1973. Under its director Manuel Contreras, who became the regime's second most powerful man, DINA quickly became notorious for brutal repression, responsible for kidnappings, coercion, sexual assault, beatings with chains, and even running detainees over with vehicles. DINA agents raided houses, censored the media, confiscated and burned books, and tracked anyone linked to leftist ideologies. The agency also conducted foreign assassinations, including the infamous 1976 car bombing of Chilean exile Orlando Letelier in Washington, D.C., which severed DINA's ties with the CIA. DINA was heavily involved in Operation Condor and Operation Colombo, cross-border campaigns to eliminate South American leftists and cover up mass disappearances. Tens of thousands suffered torture or execution. Despite Pinochet's fall, many families are still searching for missing relatives. In 1977, DINA was officially dissolved and rebranded as the CNI. The Ministry of State Security, short MSS, formed in 1983, is a Chinese hybrid police agency with around 100,000 agents, enforcing the Communist Party's control at home and abroad. Domestically, the MSS is notorious for mass surveillance, political repression, censorship, and brutal suppression of dissent. Its most visible campaign is in Xinjiang, where over 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities have been detained in re-education camps since 2017, with reports of torture, forced labor, sexual violence, and religious persecution. The MSS monitors citizens' conversations on platforms like WeChat and keeps close tabs on CCP members for signs of disloyalty. The MSS has conducted systematic political purges and employed extreme interrogation tactics. In one of its operations, it dismantled the CIA's China network, reportedly capturing or executing 30 American informants. Since then, it has expanded overseas efforts, especially under Operation Fox Hunt, abducting political dissidents abroad. The MSS operates with unchecked authority under the banner of national security. Its reach now permeates nearly all aspects of Chinese life, turning ordinary citizens into informants. The Saeng-Gaggyeongchal is North Korea's secret police and one of the most feared agencies in the world. Formed in 1973, it operates independently from the government and reports directly to the supreme leader, currently Kim Jong-un. The agency's core strategy: suppress dissent through collective punishment and total surveillance. With an estimated force of around 100,000 secret officers, it acts as the regime's enforcer, arresting, torturing, executing, or sending individuals to concentration camps without a legal process. This cruelty extends to their families and anyone connected to them, with punishments reaching up to 3 generations for political crimes and acts deemed resistant to the regime or a threat to the Kim family. Torture facilities run by the secret police often force prisoners to sit in a certain position for days without moving or sleeping. The ministry fosters a culture of fear and paranoia. Citizens are encouraged to inform on each other, and refusal to do so can be grounds for punishment. From early childhood, North Koreans are taught never to whisper or speak freely, even at home, knowing informants may be listening. The organization's agents often disguise themselves to collect intelligence directly from the population. The Okhrana was the secret police of the Russian Empire, created in 1866 after a failed assassination attempt on Emperor Alexander II to combat political terrorism and revolutionary activity. It operated across the empire and abroad, known for arbitrary arrests, assassinations, torture, and targeted manhunts. The agency became notorious for using operatives who incited others to commit crimes and attempted to disrupt the labor movement by creating police-controlled trade unions. This secret police was also partly blamed for the Bloody Sunday massacre in 1905. The 1917 Russian Revolution caught the Okhrana off guard, and revolutionaries destroyed its headquarters. It was soon replaced by Lenin's Cheka. The Sigurimi was the secret police of communist Albania under Enver Hoxha, formed in 1944 to suppress dissent and protect the Marxist-Leninist regime. 1 in 5 Albanians collaborated with it, either by choice or under coercion. Its mission was to prevent counter-revolutions and crush opposition. Albania under Hoxha became one of the world's most isolated states, with 150,000 people imprisoned and 6,000 executed. The Sigurimi monitored ideological loyalty and purged individuals linked to Yugoslavia, the USSR, or China after Albania broke ties with each. Phone conversations were tapped, media censored, opponents were imprisoned in forced labor camps or executed. Travel abroad was forbidden and religion was banned. By 1989, Sigurimi had 5 regiments ready to suppress domestic unrest. With the fall of communism in Eastern Europe, it was eventually dissolved in 1991. The security branch, South Africa's security police under apartheid, a system of racial segregation and white minority rule, was established in 1947 to crush anti-apartheid dissent. Operating within the South African police, it used covert tactics like surveillance, torture, and extrajudicial killings to target movements like the African National Congress, the main liberation group fighting for black South Africans' rights. Led by figures like Hendrik Vandenberg, it ran death squads like the Vlakplaas C1 unit and used askaris, turned informants, to infiltrate opposition. Notorious for Steve Biko's 1977 killing and thousands tortured or disappeared, it burned records in 1992 to hide crimes.